on. Why is this taking so long to go live? Yes, people, what is good? Welcome back to the channel. It's another episode of the New Spurs Order podcast. It's another week. Usual suspects. I'm gonna go quickly around the room. Scott Hall, Yao, what are you saying? How are you?
I'm out here, bro. I mean, it's been a bit hectic in the group. Been some infighting, as per usual.
When is there not infighting?
That's why the group works the way that it does. It should be infighting. But obviously we're gonna get into it with the game that's just gone. There's another one, at 3 p.m. or something like that. So
yep,
there's a lot to actually discuss. Because we've been talked about quite a bit in the hemisphere. So let's see.
Yeah. And then of course we're joined by Booker T, our resident PT. What are you saying?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good.
Eagle free.
Just happy to be here, man. Happy to be here. Still waiting on this MGW news, but yeah, man, we go, man.
Yeah. All right, listen, we ain't just to let you guys know, and just to let the listeners or the viewers know, I'm banning any reference of Morgan Gibbs White, MGW, Gibbs White, Morgan, just that light skinned guy. Like any sort of reference to that player, I'm banning it for this episode because for me, I'm sick to death of hearing his name and hearing his stupid club. I'm sick of it. Yeah. So can we just agree that we're not talking Morgan Gibbs White at least for this week's pod?
I'm fair with that.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so let's jump straight into it, man. I think I was gonna start off with a game last week, but it probably makes more sense to talk about the game that's just played. Obviously, we just played our second preseason game of the 25-26 season, and it's our first of two games we're gonna play in the same day. Make of that what you will about the size of our squad. We drew the game 2-2. We were playing in our training ground as well. Tops, I'm going to come to you. Was there anything in particular you were looking for from this game outside of just getting more minutes in the tank for the players?
Yeah, I think it was important for us to get one more minutes in the tank, for obviously Frank to get a better look at the players, and also just for him to kind of see how what we've been doing in training and obviously off that first friendly can be implemented throughout the squad. So really just things like the things that I remember seeing from the first one was just how we were going to look as a pressing side, how we were going to look on the ball, how we were going to tactically set up, and also just seeing players in different positions and how he wants to see them operate this season. So I think that's all you can really take. It's so difficult when you have friendlies because one, the squad is so large, but it's so stretched because it's mixed of first teamers and obviously youngsters. So there's only so much that you can take from it. But I think it's important to have these games. And actually, like you said, because of the size of the squad, it's actually important that you try and see as much of the players as possible to try and gauge like kind of where they are and also what you kind of think of them moving into the new season, you know.
Fair. Well, yeah, I'll come to you next on this, right? So we went with a fairly or heavily rotated lineup. So Brandon Austin in goal, Pedro Porro, Vuskovic, Romero at left centre back, Ben Davies at left back, Sarr, Abbott, and Bergvall in the midfield, Odegaard on the wings, Son or Odegaard on the right wing, Son on the left wing, and then Richarlison through the middle. I take it you watched the first game, yeah, or no? Or the first half, sorry?
Well, I missed a good portion of the first half, but I caught the tail end of it.
So we don't, so to be fair, we don't need to do the first half, second half thing, right? We can just talk about how the game went overall. In your opinion, what did you like, and what didn't you like from that performance? And it could be broad or it can be specific to players.
What I did like was the lack of fear to repetitively try and do the same thing after making a mistake. I saw that from a few of the defenders, to be honest with you. I'm not saying I want to see that consistently, but sometimes you need to at least show your opponent you're not scared to kind of like, do the same thing over. So that was decent. Sar's 2 goals were instinctive, which I did actually like. I liked the fact that, you know, he had that late run. The first goal, especially, you know, there was good movement, good passing, a good pass across from Poro. I can't remember who picked up the ball, but Odobert, that's it. Odobert picked up the ball. Quality shot, you know, made the keeper work. And that's what you want. You want either your striker or your midfielder following up, gambling, because that's where you can pick up, you know, some really like cheap, but, you know, well worked goals. So I like that element. What I didn't like is we conceded 2 goals. I didn't like the kind of goals that we conceded. But the caveat to that is, you know, anybody that's played any sort of sports would know these first 2 weeks back in training, you know, you're going through the motions. You're getting the nasty ruts out of your system, and you'll find out some people will come back fit, some people won't. And I think one of the standouts for me was, you know, seeing some of the younger talent get a run out, see what they were capable of doing. And there was like 1 or 2 that I was like, you know, hopefully you have a good season. Maybe a loan might be good for them. But essentially, I was like, yeah, I was quite pleasantly pleased.
Fair. I can't really disagree with most of what you said. If I have to look at, so if we move on to like noteworthy performances, then so his performance, it faded a little bit in the second half, but I was actually quite impressed with Bergvall in the first half. I thought he was always the one in the midfield that wanted to show for the ball, especially in dangerous situations. He's getting in between with 2 Wickham players, and he's saying, "Give me the ball. I want to take the ball here. I want to get things moving." And like that is a characteristic that we saw last season. And it's not just the willingness to put yourself in that position, it's also the willingness to actually play the ball forward. Now, of course, there were most of his passes were lateral passes, but he did progress. Like he was looking to give it, move, receive it, give it, move. I remember one pass he played in the first half where he basically put Pedro Porro in on goal from, I think it was halfway line. He played a pass in behind. And then it got to a point towards the end of the first half where he was actually switching play quite well. I do think his performance in the second half faded a little bit. Maybe he wasn't as like energetic as he was in the first half, but he still kept the passing rhythm going. I thought he was actually the only midfielder, if I'm being honest, that wanted to get on the ball and pass it. I thought George Abbott, I thought he was actually all right. Like I thought good energy in his performance, like pressed well, won the ball back for us well, some decent interceptions. And then I think the other noteworthy performance for me, I thought Pedro Porro was actually pretty decent. I know he's not a fan favorite amongst our podcast, but I actually thought Pedro Porro was pretty decent. And then I actually quite liked the look of the winger the wingers. Sorry. So Odobert on the right, I thought he looked sharp. And then I thought the winger that came on for for Odobert, sorry, Thompson off the left, I thought he looked impressive when he was playing as well. I don't know. So those are the ones that stood out for me from a positive. Tops, if we flip it, which players are you looking at that left a lot to be desired?
That left a lot to be desired. I mean, I know it's preseason and it's probably a non-conversation, but Brandon Austin in goal, I don't know. I'm not really sure what we're doing with that, and I'm a little bit surprised that we let Josh Keeley go. Just because I feel like even though Frank does like a ball playing goalkeepers, I feel like he will get something out of Kinski, and he probably is going to have to see how we go with with Vicario. But I kind of feel like Josh Keeley, with his performance last year on loan, and hopefully coming back as a third keeper now that the other two, the other one had gone and Brandon Austin was remaining, thinking maybe he might get the chance. But today, I don't know, I kind of just didn't feel super comfortable, Brandon Austin with the ball at his feet, and obviously the clanger for the first goal. A little bit disappointed in Sarr. I'm really at a loss as to why he is the way he is. Like I made a point in the group, like without like trying to diminish his ability and like cheapen him. I feel like he's a very, very good younger version of Gallagher. I feel like he's energetic, he's tenacious, he gets around the pitch. You know, he can get a goal here or there. Like he's fairly active, but on the ball just leaves a lot to be wanting. You know, rarely receives it or takes it under pressure on the half turn. Doesn't really like it in tight spaces. When he is on the ball, his passing is kind of limited. But then you know you get a lot of him off the ball, and then you also get goals from him as well. So I feel like we're still trying to work out what his true position is and how he's really going to fit into kind of player is because he still has got a long time on his contract at the club. Outside of him, again, I said it in the group as well. I just don't see like where we're going as a club with like Richarlison and Son. I look at these guys and I think Son as a central player, fine. I wouldn't even mind it because I feel like we're going to have players that be able to create and put them in positions. But the two of them, for me, in their roles that they started today as a striker and the left winger, they just lack dynamism. They lack energy. Almost looks like everything is in slow motion. And honestly, against the kind of opposition that Wickham are, I just don't see why someone like Richarlison should be struggling at this level. But maybe it's just his level. I don't know. I just want us to look seriously at offloading the two of them and bringing in two other players that will give us something a bit more.
Yeah.
Even as squad players, even as squad players.
So yeah, it's definitely an interesting one because I want to. We've spoken about the good players. We've spoken about the bad players today. So I want to deep dive into some of these players because they have been the topic of conversations over the last couple of days. So if we go in reverse and we speak to the players who didn't have a good game. So Macho Man asked in the chat around Sa. He said, what do we see as like the long-term future of thinking for Sa? Because today's game, like under a different manager, he's deployed as the furthest of a three-man midfield. Now, of course, we know Madison is injured, Kulusevski's injured, so the manager probably would have liked to play a 10 there, but you notice he didn't play Bergvall, who's probably closest to that position of our fit players. He instead opted to play Bergvall deeper and played Sa ahead of him as the furthest forward. Is there thinking back to the Reading game, which we'll touch on maybe the lack of progression from Sa in the deeper areas? Because we saw Ange do it last season where Sa was this furthest forward midfielder who was allowed to sort of like run around and try and win the ball back high. But when we're in possession, his role is just redundant. When we're out of possession, he just looks like he's running. And it sounds mad saying this because he scored 2 goals. Yes, he is improving his ability to find the moment to arrive in the box and actually get himself a goal. But where do you see Sa's future long term for Tottenham?
Well, he's 23 at this point. And when I look at his position, I do feel like last season he got heavily misprofiled, like in terms of his requirement and what he was asked to do. I see Sa more as a break up play and recycle box to box kind of player. Like can get from box to box, no problem. But his best attribute is breaking up play, not tackling, intercepting, and progressing our play. However, the problem with that is where he's passing is not necessarily the greatest in our squad. His biggest asset would come from his ability to drive forward. And I don't think he's been capable of doing that since he's injured. And that's where I mentioned it in the group. I think since he's come back from his injury, it sounds so harsh to say this, but he seems like he's either second guessing himself or he's completely off the pace. Now, I can't remember what injury it was, but whatever it is, he's definitely he's not playing football with instinct. He's almost playing it second guessing himself, and at the professional level, you cannot do that. You cannot be deemed to look like or think like you're second guessing a pass, driving with the ball, or even a shot. Everything will get taken away. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you second guess for a second at the professional level, at the height that they're at, you're just going to get dealt with. You're going to look like needy to anybody else. However, when he does stuff instinctively, which this kind of sounds similar to how people used to talk about Son finishing. You know, if Son doesn't have time to finish, think, it's a goal. If he has time to think, he's gonna fluff it. This is similar in the way I look at Sarr. I feel like he needs, maybe this season needs to be a season where he's more working behind the scenes on probably improving his confidence. He's passing, definitely, because his passing is found wanting. And getting minutes here and there. I don't think he can be a starter right now, which is sad because off his first season, especially, you know, the first half of it, he was pretty one of the standouts. But I think he needs to be embedded into the squad with care. However, long term, if he doesn't step up to the plate within the next 2 years, you know, hand in your P45 because we ain't got time for this.
Quickly, just one thing I also think as well that has also kind of hindered him a little bit is that when he actually was playing in that right 8 position, he actually was playing in a settled team with settled players. He was playing constantly in that channel with Kulusevski and Porro, and I feel like we sometimes take for granted that having that partnership and that connection regularly of guys that you know their movements, you know their positions, you know where they're going to be, it kind of helps. And because he's been in and out of the team, Kulusevski's not been playing, Porro hasn't been up and down. I also kind of feel that kind of probably has maybe made a small difference to the way that he's playing when he does play. And like Toby said, he's playing in like lots of different roles, especially roles that maybe he's not particularly comfortable with. Whereas when we were in that settled sort of midfield situation where it was Maddison, himself, Bentancur, or Bissouma, we kind of knew where his role was. We knew what his position was, and he kind of had that role in the team. And I maybe think now that it's just a little bit of confusion as to what that role for him is.
Yeah, it's I still think long term there's a future for a profile of his in our squad, but it's highly dependent on the progress he can make when he is in possession. Like, how brave can you be with your passing? And if you're not going to be a passer, can you be someone who can carry it? Like we saw with Moussa Dembele, obviously I'm not comparing Sarr to Moussa Dembele. Dembele was a quality player for Tottenham, but even Dembele had these limitations as well. Dembele wasn't the greatest passer. He wasn't a terrible passer, but wasn't the greatest passer. But Dembele made up for it because he was just monstrous defensively. And then on the ball, you couldn't take him off it. He gets the ball, he'll carry it past 2-3 players, so strong, so strong, so athletic, so agile. Extremely good ball retention, extremely good dribbling. So I think Sarr has to add some diversity to his game. He does, and I think the goals is probably the earliest indication of that. We saw it last season where he was popping up with goals more so. This season already, he's notched 2 in pre-season. If you're going to be that guy who box crashes and gets us goals, maybe that could be your role in the team, right? But whatever it is that is going to be his niche. It needs to be something that he can do on a fairly frequent basis for Tottenham, because the stuff that he came into the team for, we've not seen enough progression, be it the passing and the all-round impact in that deeper zone in the midfield. I think if we pivot onto Son and Richarlison, I think we have to release Swans. We do have to release Swans. More so for Son. And this is where I'm gonna combine the Reading game as well, because he didn't start in the Reading game. We won the Reading game 2-0. He came on off the bench and he stank in that game. Today he started, he stank. He's obviously the subject of a ongoing bid by LAFC. Yao, I'm coming to you on this because you've been talking about this for a long time, and I think it's only right I give you the mic. Where do you stand on Son Heung-min for this upcoming season?
Firstly, I'd like to say to Saeed, you can't talk to man if you're not the defending Europa League champions, innit? So don't send shots for my squad. I'll send shots for yours. Yeah. But what I will say is regarding Son, the writing's been on the wall for a minute. This is not the first time we've been talking about it. Like, he's giving us back to, I mean, statistically, you could argue, oh, he's still, you know, putting up numbers. But that's not how the game works, bro. Like a man could be scoring 17 goals and we could be playing every game looking like we've got 10 men on the pitch. That's not cool. We don't want to be looking like that. Like we saw Son in the final. He gave the worst 15 minutes, but the most important 15 minutes any captain could do. You want to know how I knew Son was cooked before we even got to preseason? In that final, he tried to go on a run, lost the ball. And for the remainder of that final, he became a defender. I said, yeah, I know what that is. You know mentally you are finished at this level. This ain't for you. You now need to drop down to the Asian Oceanic level. You need to go to Australia and play for Oakland. That's where you're gonna be like a world-class kind of player. You can't this level ain't for you no more. Like you are over the hill. It's done. Leave football before football leaves you. This is what I'm talking about. Like, don't let the game catch you first. Yeah, Son, you done your thing. You lifted the trophy. We're going to flipping your neck of the woods. Go over there, say hello to the family, go check on your cousins, show them the medal, the real one, no puns intended. Show them the medal, let them know where it is, all over the place, buku, 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 and then leave. Yeah, that's the right thing to do. That's the right way to go about your business. But if I swing this pendulum to a man that should not consider himself to be Brazilian, Richard, listen, I wanted this guy at my club since the end of the week. This guy refuses to leave. Listen, the relationship's done, bruv. Let it go. Let it go. Nobody wants you around, fam. I don't understand. Like, go and do something like that. Nobody wants you here. I don't even, you know when somebody arrives at a party and everybody's like, rah, you let my man here. Yeah, that's what Richard is. Why are you talk to your agent and say, look, it's a World Cup year. Send me to Flamengo. Yeah, flipping Ancelotti's up in Brazil. Send him there. Let him go do some jigga, some jenga over there. Don't come to North London thinking, yeah, I'm just gonna be on the bench. I'm gonna work hard. Your career in England is finished. Listen, I don't know if you heard that loud enough because I was whispering it. So let me say it again. It's done. It's absolutely cooked. I don't even want big money for Richarlison. Spurs have to be ruthless. Do that in Ndombele kind of thing. Send man pack 5 mil, bro. It's cooked. It's finished. We're not getting big bucks for Richarlison. We're not doing nothing. Like, we just got to get rid of him. Richard deserves absolutely nothing at all. Listen, we got the trophy. Great. He was actually good in the final. I'm not going to sit here and cuss man and say he wasn't. He was good in the final. But well done. But bruv, go down to the Spurs shop. Take whatever you want out of there. You know, as a souvenir. Head down to Seven Sisters. Get on the Victoria line. Take the train all the way to Brixton and never return to North again.
I thought he was going to take him. I thought he was going to take us on a trip towards Heathrow. Imagine say goes south.
Notice he didn't even suggest like a chauffeur or anything. He said take your pounds. Take your pounds and sit your ass on the London Underground. no drive. He said sit your ass down on the tube.
At least with Son, I can understand value and all of that kind of stuff. But nah, Richard, forget it. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah,
15 million combined. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, you know what? With him, it's like the writing's been on the wall for so long. And he's the only one that's fighting it. And you just need to accept your destiny. Like, you just can't hang. Like, you just can't hang. And that's okay, brother. That's okay. You can go somewhere else where you are the bigger fish in a smaller pond. Unfortunately, this level is just not for you. And it brings me on to a point that I think is worth discussing. And sorry, I'm gonna basically like jump in between topics because we're still talking preseason as well. but we are struggling to sell players.
Yeah.
We're struggling to sell players, or better yet, it looks from the outside that we are struggling to sell players because we're seeing minimal movement. We've not heard much from Solomon. We've not heard much from Gill. We've not heard much from Basuma. We've not heard much from Richarlison. We've not heard much from Ben Davies. We've not heard much from the loanees. Like we've signed, and we'll get on the centre backs in a second, but we signed some players where they obviously need a loan. We signed players last season that need a loan. We're not really hearing enough, and it's like preseason started, bruh. We're gonna be flying to. Is it where are we going? Is it South Korea?
Yeah,
we're gonna
so yeah.
We're gonna be flying to South Korea next week, so it'll be interesting to see which players make the cut because in typical fashion, when the squad is quite big, we normally see players instructed to stay behind because they need
So
to
their
find
futures out and
moves.
stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Like we've seen it
Mhm.
happen with Lo Celso, we've seen it happen with Regulon and a few others. So it will be interesting to see, but I am worried because a window that actually looked quite positive 2 weeks ago, I'm worried that it's stalling. And I'm not talking just about signings, incoming. It's about the outgoings because we can sign
Massively.
all the players we want, right? If we don't sell these players, we're gonna have a big problem in terms of like our squad registration for the season, the
Mhm.
season that's coming.
I don't even,
True.
you know what, it's going to sound mad. I don't even think we actually have that big of an issue. We do in terms of the size of the squad. But listen, certain man, maybe Richard might say, I'm not going because obviously the money is good, yeah. But certain man will know next year, and we're fortunate. A few clubs are fortunate in this circumstance. Next year is the biggest World Cup of all time. Like they've extended the amount of teams that can be in this. It's the biggest World Cup of all time. It's across 3 countries.
Great point.
None of these players want to miss out on representing their nation. Not a single one. So if it gets to like the second week of August and they're like, bro, I might not be even featuring in this manager's like future year, they're gonna start like panicking and like calling their agents, like, get me out of here now. Yeah. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there's a flurry of exits towards the back end of August. Like we will know first 2 games of the season who's done for. And I pray to our almighty Lord and Savior that one of them man is Richard, so he understands this is not your season. In fact, he shouldn't even be selected for Brazil. Ancelotti should call him straight up and be like, I'm calling you straight from pen to let you know you ain't gonna make it, bruv. Call collect.
Yeah, it's listen, I hear where you're coming from. It's just that like with Spurs, we have a tendency to drag our feet with things like this, and it's basically like it's like Groundhog Day, like because you want these players to go, and then something happens, and then those players don't go, and then before you know it, that then impacts our ability to bring in players. We've seen it happen all the time. I remember we were chasing Bastoni all summer. We were told Tanganga's gonna leave, only to get Longley, and then Tanganga stays and gets kept as a squad option. Now, I don't think that we have that risk with some of the players that we've mentioned, i.e., like a Solomon or a Gill. But there's or even maybe a Basuma, because we see the club are linked to a player that we'll talk about today. But yeah, man, it's just not good to see. But if I pivot from the bad and talk about the good, now we've been speaking about the midfield for a long time this week, like talking about what profiles do we need, passer, destroyer, enforcer. Well, Tottenham are in the market and everyone knows we need a midfielder. We were linked heavily with, well, I say heavily, we were linked with Wharton. Apparently the club are speaking to Crystal Palace to see the conditions of that deal, but that's not a likely deal to go through this summer, maybe, who knows. But in recent days, we've been linked with Palhinha, and then Fabrizio has confirmed this morning that we have held initial talks with a view to a formal approach for the Bayern Munich midfielder. I think it might be a loan potentially, or a cheap deal to do. Where do you stand on this signing. And Tops, I'll come to you first. And please sort of bring in the point that has been made around the passing and Bergvall's role in the team, Bentancur's roles in the team as well.
Yeah, like to be honest with you, it's funny. I initially mentioned him earlier on last season, and I was kind of like it was rebuffed by a couple of guys in the group just because of his age and his limited sort of skill set. And to be honest with you, now that I think about it and I look at the bigger picture, I still kind of feel the same. I still feel like he's a definite workhorse. He breaks shit up. He's the kind of player that you kind of need in your midfield, a profile that you need in your midfield, because there's going to be some games where it's going to be a mid or it could be a deep block, and you're going to have to just have players who are happy to do the dirty work, the doggies. But whilst I believe that, I kind of am of the opinion that midfields these days, you have to have, this is again similar why I feel like you have a small issue with someone like Saad. You have to have the ability to be on the ball. And if you look at some of the best midfields in the world, whilst they might not be the most athletic, they're all pretty technically able. And I'm not saying that he isn't technically able, but I just think that he is kind of going to be on the more limited side, and it might require the the characteristics of Madison, where he's going to have to drop in almost like a deep line playmaker, or you're going to have to put that specific ball playing onus in the first phase on a young player like Bergvall. And I feel like in the Premier League, whilst that's positive, you can get the minutes to do so, you can have the experience to do so. It can also be unforgiving. And in what basically the most important area of the pitch, I've seen Bergvall like lose the ball lose the ball in midfield in European games, in Premier League games, and it leads to quite dangerous sort of situations on our defense. Sorry. So whilst I think it's important to have someone like Palini there, because I think it will be good to be able to finally have a player who is happy to sit in front of the back four, who's happy to break stuff up, who's happy to screen, and I think that's actually really important because if you think about it, that's something that we really, really lacked last season. But again, I'm just of the opinion that midfielders, you need them to all be comfortable on the ball. You need them all to be able to take the ball in areas that they don't really feel comfortable in and be able to get the ball in a way that can push the team forward. And again, that's why I think someone like a Wharton, he's excellent because he's able to make that pass quickly. He's able to do it on the turn fast, while still being sort of structurally and positionally sort of like correct. But if it's a short-term deal, I'm not going to say no. This is a fully fledged international. This is a guy who has experience. And actually, if you look at his last season at Fulham, he was fantastic. He was fantastic at Fulham. So if we can do this deal on a short deal, a loan possibly, or a cheap deal, it improves the experience level of the squad. It improves the experience level of the midfield because we have another player who's now capable of playing in the Premier League. We're just going to have to maybe support that kind of player with the right tools around him so that the midfield works in a way that suits us. And one thing I always been massively thinking about as well is that in lots of Frank's midfields, the six is someone who plays, or the deepest midfielder is someone who plays as kind of like you said, a screen for the back four, but he always and is very adept in coming into the back two, almost to make it like a back three. So if he's capable to do so, then I'm all for it. But if we sign him and it looks like there's going to be some inability to do what we need him from a technical perspective and a ball playing perspective, it could just be us just wasting our time and money. But we can't really say until we see. He didn't play much last season. I know that there were some injury issues at the beginning of the season, and this is a guy who Bayern wanted, and they initially wanted him in January, and it didn't work out, and then it ended up happening in the summer. But he's just not had a great year, it seems.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I don't disagree with your point on the quality that we need on the ball, and I think putting that onus on a 19-year-old Bergvall alone is for me, it just isn't the way to build a squad personally. I think you need someone alongside Bergvall who's gonna take that responsibility. And listen, Paulinho, I don't think he's terrible on the ball, but it's like, is he gonna have the adventure or the instinct to get the ball instantly and pass it forward? Like, we can see him switch play here and there, Like he's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna be someone who's gonna turn over the possession all the time. But it's like we need someone who's more than safe. Like Sarr, if you look at his passing percentages, they're typically in the high 80s, or like low 90s. But it's like you look at the quality of pass, it's low, right? And I think we need someone in that midfield who's going to take the onus to actually control games. When you look at how we build up, it's typically Romero or Porro that have to push further forward and maybe make passes into the final third, or Maddison dropping deep, right? Bentancur, can you step up and do more this season if you're kept, right? Archie Gray, can we see more from you on the ball, right? Not just Bergvall. Like it needs to be like we need to see changed behavior in terms of players' actions on the ball from the midfielders that we have. If Palhinha is to be signed anyway, but yeah, what's your take on Palhinha?
I'm not too sure what the deal is around it, to be honest with you. One outlet is saying it's straight transfer, another outlet is saying it's a loan. If I'll try and make a case for both. If it's a loan, I kind of understand it in the sense of like the defensive midfield position in world football right now is pretty much like the strikers.
Yeah.
There's very limited like high level defensive midfielders out there. If you want to consider them to be defensive midfielders, they're more hybrid type players now as opposed to out and out specialists in such a role. Me personally, I would have gone for Douglas Luiz, going off the back of what he did at Aston Villa. I know he's had an absolute torrid time at Juve, but just on what I've seen from the player, I would have gone for Douglas Luiz. But Palhinha, his time at Fulham, he was a destroyer. He did help him out quite a lot. I don't know what's gone on and what's gone wrong at Bayern Munich, but coming into, say, a Spurs squad, for me, it depends on what his role is. If his role is, all right, cool, I'm in a double pivot, I break up play, and I literally funnel it to the first like player that's going to either carry it, Bergvall, or pass it, maybe Bergvall, Porro, like if he's literally like Wanyama in a sense. If he's
literally where I was going with it.
He's that kind of player for us, then I understand it. What I won't understand is if he comes in and I see man get the ball and he's looking up and he's like, I'm going to try and pass it between the lines, because that's not his game. Yeah. Like, so for me, I'm a bit worried, if I'm being brutally honest with you. That's why, because I don't see him as a player that can drive well from that role.
Like, do you know what's crazy is that when you look at the comps and everything, man, I'm seeing no passing, I'm seeing no dribbling. All I'm seeing is this man dropping to the ground, tackling.
Yeah,
that's what we need, though. We need that.
As much as people can be like, yeah, the comps don't look good and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, the truth be told, last season, our midfield, I tell you, ranking. Yeah, like there's certain words I can't use because
but I mean, he does give us some metal. He's tall. It looks like he's robust. Like,
metal. It's more of a. You at least that you have someone who's a clampers.
Yeah,
we don't have a clampers.
Yeah, we don't have a clampers. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Even though Newcastle are getting taken for small brother, which they always should be. Yeah, even though they're getting taken for small brother, what they have in the middle of their field is the greatest collection of WWE superstars since the Attitude Era. That's what we have been missing. Yeah, like for us. Listen, last year I saw, what game was it? It was the Villa game. Within seconds of kickoff, I said, Ross, these men are already running down on our goal.
Listen, man, it won't be well with Ange, man. It will never be well with Ange.
It only happens when you go and watch like under 8s, like when kids kick off and it's an automatic attack. Like what is happening over here? So for us, we need a player that will be like, let's say we've got possession, because that's what we are going to be, by the way. I hope people are prepared for that. We're going to be a possession-based team, which we have been for the last 2.5 seasons anyway. But let's get possession higher up the field and our opponents break on us. What we had last season was people just watching man run, especially Basuma, because obviously he had to do balloons halfway through the game. Yeah, man would watch man run, and then next thing you know, they're having like 4 or 5 shots within a 10-minute period in the game. At the very least, with Paulinho, 3 of those opportunities will result in a foul or him taking the ball. So I can expect that element of his game. What I do not want to see if he arrives and he's like, I'm going to try be a playmaker 8. That's not your game, brother. Like, keep it mad simple. Because remember, it's going to be a double pivot. And I generally believe, even in the 4-3-3, it's going to be a double pivot. Instead of it being a flat 1 and that man having to cover all sorts of space and ground, it's going to be more of a double pivot. And then the 8 or whoever's playing the 8 will have license to be more of a box-to-box. So in that sense, it can make sense. But I'd rather Douglas Luiz.
And this is, and for me, this is why I'm like, because I if we go off Brentford, obviously he's going to play different at Spurs to a certain extent because he's going to have a different profile player. But it looks like he'll go with a double pivot. So to your point, if Paulinho is the deepest a double pivot, but he's got a midfielder next to him, yeah, it can work. My ultimate preference, though, and this is me being cheeky, if I had it my way, I would tell both Bentancur and Basuma, sling your hook, Peggy Mitchell style, sling your hook. Yeah, get them out of here. They both got a year left in their deals. Listen, they're not bad players. There's a market to buy Basuma and Bentancur.
Oh, stop it.
No, wait, hear me out. What I'm saying is that they can pick up moves. Bentancur was fielding interest from Atletico Madrid. Basuma fielding interest from Fenerbahce. Like, they can pick up moves. I don't see the point in keeping these guys for one more season when we've got experienced midfielders that we can bring into this team that can fit our needs better. So if Spurs were to go get a Paulinho for cheap and were to get a Douglas Luiz for cheap, then you have a brand new double pivot that could actually work. You have Douglas Luiz to give you the pass and can venture forward, and then you have him rotating with Bergvall. Then you have Gray as the understudy to Paulinho to give us a different type of number 6, and then you have Sarr basically double hatting in both positions if need be.
If need be, yeah.
For me, that works, but it's something Spurs will never do. And again, I know we weren't going to mention, I banned his name, but like, if Mr. MGW comes into the picture, we don't know what role Frank might have for him. Frank may say, you know what? Hey, I might want you deeper in the midfield next to Paulinho. Maybe that could work. So I think we're at a point now where, like, well, I am now where I'm like, Paulinho's not the midfielder that I think we need, but Paulinho is a midfielder that adds a lot of value to this team if you go off what we struggled with last season off the ball. So that's just where I'm at with it now. Like, I have to, if they sign him, I have to put my faith.
I'm not totally against the signing. Like, I feel like people have been seeing us linked with Paulinho and have rubbed it out like he's dead food. Man's not dead food.
I agree.
The problem is the style of play. Because remember,
there you go.
A lot of people are thinking, oh, Paulinho would have been perfect under Ange. He would have been finished under Ange, because Ange required the DM to do everything, bro. Like, the whole midfield role.
A whole midfield job.
So under Frank, I'd argue, and I'd strongly argue, that there is more of a remit in terms of him breaking up and facilitating. And if he does it well, this is why I'm talking about the whole Wanyama thing. Yeah, when we had Wanyama and Dembele, neither one of them were great passes. Not a single one of them were great passes. But Jesus Christ, if Wanyama took the ball and facilitated it onto Dembele, we were up the pitch. That was all you knew as Spurs. If one of these men took the ball off you, we were up the pitch. If Paulinho can be that type of player where he can break the ball, quickly offload it. Let's say, I'm going to use an example. Let's say he offloaded it to Bergvall, and let's say Maddison's back from injury. Yeah, so Maddison doesn't have to, drop into the 8 roles. He can just stay in the 10. Well, if he breaks up the play and gives it to Bergvall, Bergvall turns and looks up and he's like, all right, I see the space, or I see Maddison. He's got 2 options. He can now drive, and we know the kid can drive. and he does that well, or he can at least facilitate the ball into Maddison. That is an option Spurs haven't had for nearly 4 seasons. Like, we haven't had that ability to like look at a player and be like, yeah, this guy is going to be our destroyer. Now, to your point, if Bissouma is sold and say Bentancur is not sold, because I don't see both of them going, if I'm being brutally honest. I would agree. I do see that both of them should go. But if the double pivot was, say, Paulinho and Bentancur,
I like it.
It can work. Yeah,
exactly.
But Bentancur, Bentancur would need to be fair, towards the back end of last season, he was getting back to some sort of form that we knew of him.
But he needs to be the old Bentancur. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like he was out for a whole year. Like
he was. But I'm talking more in terms of play style, because I think under Ange, he's been turned into this dogged, like more defensive minded player. Whereas under Conte, I think he was the one that out of him and Højbjerg, he was the one that was allowed to venture forward. So
drive and pass.
Drive with the ball.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Drive and pass. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. No, again, I'm not against the Paulinho deal, but Toby makes a valid point. In fact, even I would go and get Paulinho, sell Bissouma, and bring in Douglas Luiz. Even if we didn't sell Bentancur, I'd still bring in Douglas Luiz, because they're both cheap.
Yeah, this is it, isn't it? They're available and they're both cheap. This is this. You would almost think this is a Levy classic. This is your MO, bro. Go and sign players that you like to sign. This is your MO. Why would you not do this? Players when you know that we're going to need the squad's going to be stretched. There is a little bit of an experience gap with the Champions League, and you have a World Cup here. Come on, man. Like that's easy work, and we have the money to do so. Come on. You have 2 players who are both Premier League experienced players, like pledged internationals. This should be easy. I don't know. Like, if you're not gonna get you know who, or you're not gonna get Wharton, then at least you go fill your squad with Premier League level players who you know have played at the highest level, have played in Premier League, are internationals, and they're going to improve the level of the squad. And they provide you with different options to now build your team in different ways and different setups.
I agree. I fully agree. We need to see where the club play this, or how the club play this. Sorry, but because that midfield conundrum, it needs nipping in. It needs to be like settled. And then I want to talk about our defense as well, because obviously we've seen our first 2 glimpses of Vuskovic in a Spurs shirt. So he came on as a substitute against Reading. Very nice finish on his weaker foot as well to give us our second goal in that game. And then he played, I think he played like 70, 75, 76 minutes today.
Yeah.
I can't remember, something around that. So this is 2 games in succession that he's played for Tottenham. Now, of course, everyone's seen his stature, everyone's seen the goal, everyone's seen his aerial prowess, and of course, people are running to conclusions. Oh, could he be a squad option this season, etc., etc. So I want to have us explore our centre-back options, because the centre-back area is a problem for me. I'm not going to lie, it is. You look at the number of options we have alone. We have the starting 2, Romero van der Ven. Then we have Danso. Then we have Dragusin, who's injured currently. Then we have Takai, who got signed this summer. Then we have Dorrington and Phillips, who are just loaned out to I think Aberdeen and
Stoke. Yeah.
Stoke, yep. Then we have Vuskovic. So right now in the first team, and then we have Ben Davies. So right now in the first team, we have about Ben Davies, bro. Ben Davies, bro. And this is my point.
25,
so
Ben Davies.
We have 6. We've loaned out 2 young G's, and we still have 6 options at centre back this season.
No, we don't. We have 4.
I know we have 4, but I want you to explain why we have 4. Go on. Go on.
You're a sicko, man. You're actually
he's right,
sicko,
though.
man.
He's
Let me learn, bro. Let me learn. Yeah, we know we got the starting two. That's a given. Yeah, let's not say like
fine.
the starting two. If you go to a back three, Danso becomes, for me, automatic
TCB.
third option. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then in any team, you're gonna have the young buck, or the young buck that, if needed, could fill in. If we're facing, say, a weak opposition in a cup game or something like that, you can give them minutes here and there to get their experience up in Vuskovic and Takai. So that's your pairing right there. That's all. That is it. Our biggest problem, and what has been our biggest problem for 2 whole seasons, is from November to Feb, certain man get injured. Or should I say, they get the Neymar injury, which is very prominent to his sister's birthday. Now, I don't know if these men have sisters, but if they do, they're out for a very long time around a certain particular time of the year. So if we can go, say, hypothetically, if we can go a season where these men don't pick up no significant injury or suspension or something like that, well then Vuskovic and Takai can pick. No. Danso's gonna be. Danso's gonna be
the young ones. The young ones.
He's
Yeah,
gonna be
sorry.
right.
Yeah.
Danso's gonna be definitely the rotational. Like, he's got enough experience. There might be games where we might need to rest man. He's that guy. Yeah. So then Vuskovic and Takai become the, okay, I'm just throwing a team out there. This is not a shot at them. Let's say we're facing Cardiff, I don't know, the FA Cup or something like that, whatever. Yeah. Vuskovic and Takai become that, okay, we might pair them up with Danso in that match, or we might go back and play them man in that match. Or let's say we're beating a team 3-4-0, you want to give these men a few minutes, we do that. That's how these men are going to get their minutes, because remember, the Premier League is a massive step up. I'm not against it, but Davis is there merely for Welsh relations. We're trying to keep, good trade routes between us and Wales. And always good to have a representative from the nation.
I don't disagree with like Ben Davies' minutes being like decreased this season, but my concern isn't just Ben Davies. My concern is, you're right, for 2 seasons, around certain periods of times, our entire left side just goes. Yeah. Whether it's Mickey van der Ven and then Destiny, or them both injured at the same time, or it's just Destiny, our entire left side is cooked. And Vuskovic is a young G. If you said to me Vuskovic is the 5th option to come to be dotted around the team, to bring on in some cup games here and there, calm. Like Liverpool, they had at a point, they had like Konate, Matip,
Bradley,
Van Dijk, Gomez, and then
Gomez,
they had, and then I can't remember who else they had. But like Arsenal, they have Saliba, Gabriel, they have Kivior, Ben White. They just signed this new young G, Mosquera.
Mosquera from Valencia, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like, they got depth. With Spurs, yes, I know that Takai played on the left for his former team. I know that Vuskovic, I think he's right-footed, obviously, but he's been tried on the right and the left, right? But for me, we're missing a trick if we don't sign a left, like an out-and-out left-sided defender, one who is adept at playing both centre-back and, if need be, left-back. We basically need another. We need another Mickey van der Ven, really.
Yes, we do.
Without the mashed up hamstrings, we need another Mickey van der Ven. That's what we need, and that's why I'm concerned of the centre back position, because I'm like, if you're asking a combination of Takai and Vuskovic to pick up the slack for that 4th centre back option, which we know will be exercised, absolutely, we know that's going to be, like, even if they're not injured, the sheer amount of football we're going to play this season, the level of opposition we're going to play, you can't afford to have a significant dip in quality when you're rotating the team. You can't. I'm sorry, you just can't. It's why, like, again, I hate to use them as like they're not really the benchmark per se, but like, you look at Arsenal, Ben White was injured for 3 months or 4 months or whatever. Did they miss? They didn't miss him. If anything, Timbers, they're saying Timbers better than Ben White. Did you get?
Yeah, crazy.
Like Gvardio, obviously no one's gonna have Gvardio money, but I'm talking about the profile player. Gvardio plays left back, plays centre back. Even if I wanted to go cheaper, Nathan Ake, when they won the treble, he played left back, he played centre back. Who is Tottenham's solution on the left-hand side to complement Destiny and Mickey van der Ven? Because it's not Takai right now, and Vuskovic is someone who I don't mind being part of the squad, but I personally think when you look at his stature, when you look at him right now, he's someone who I think should be playing a lot of football, and we can't give him a lot of football. So I don't really know what we're gonna do at centre back.
I actually disagree when it comes to the whole centre back position. I think it's for me personally, I don't feel like you have to give those centre backs too much time in their development, especially when they're that young. I think minutes in terms of like understanding the positioning and what they need to do at the level and the pace that they're going to be playing at that level is more important for me. I feel like when it's wingers and midfielders and strikers, you need to give them time. So they almost need to be like thrown in and get their repetition in. Even fullbacks, but centre backs, you can go like say 4 months not really playing much, blah blah blah, and then go face a team in a cup game with the captain. So let's say Romero's captain for argument's sake. If you paired him up with Vuskovic or even gave Vuskovic like 20 minutes, that's how you would build up your centre back, because essentially it's always going to come down to pairing. It's very rare that you're going to have one centre back that can pair with everyone. In the case of Van Dijk and how he does it at Liverpool, but 9 times out of 10 is always going to be coming down to a pairing. So you got your Mickey and Romero. You might have your Vuskovic and Takai in the future, in argument's sake, and all of that kind of stuff. But those young bucks, they need, especially the ones that are not born and raised here and haven't got used to the pace that is in this country, they're going to need to be embedded in carefully, because you're not going to have a season like Bergwijn, where he got thrown in the deep end and flourished. You might get a season where, God forbid, there's loads of injuries, and all of a sudden you're having a season like Gray where you're playing centre back for like 30 flipping games when it's not your role.
Yeah. Well, this is what we wanted really last season, to be honest with you, to kind of bed some of these guys in. And because of the injury status that we had last season, you were forcing guys to play in roles that they didn't want to play, and you were forcing guys who were really inexperienced to play when they should be kind of paired up with a Romero or a Van der Ven, just to give them a little bit of experience, a little bit of cover, so that they can learn the trade in the game. Like, they don't have to be thrown in these crazy sort of scenarios where you're starting a defense of Dragusin and Gray and Davies. It's just basic squad planning. It's okay to have lots of players fighting for positions. It's okay to keep the competitiveness and the aggressive nature in the squad, because you are fighting on technically 5 fronts this season. That's okay. The notion that we'll have to kind of always ride this line and constantly always make things a little bit kind of careful because we don't want to keep anyone on the books, paying them wages and not keeping them happy. That's what football's about. At the top level, you have players fighting, competing to constantly play. And when they're given the opportunity to, they can step up. It's great. You can have kids. You can have kids that have got great potential. I see a lot of potential in Bergwijn. I see a lot of potential in Vuskovic. I see a lot of potential in Gray. But you also have to have guys that are ready to come in. Say you get 3 months loss of Romero, 3 months loss of a Mickey van der Ven, or say you have some players going to African nations or any of these sort of season cups. You need to have guys ready to go. And right now, that is the one position, in my opinion, we need a left-sided centre-back who can cover a left-back. We need it. We got one in Danso, in my opinion. We don't have one at the moment outside of that.
Yeah, we need to see how that materializes. So I guess we just have to do the hardest thing when it comes to the summer transfer windows and Tottenham, and be patient and see what they got cooking up for us. We know that they've been linked to players who play left side centre back position. So let's see, man. Let's see what the market has in store for us. People, we're going to end it here. Spurs are about to kick off in an hour. We will cover that game in the next pod next week. For those who are still watching or listening, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's literally easy as or easy peasy. Just hit the subscribe button. If you're listening, make sure you follow us on all socials as well: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, New Spurs, all the one word. Yao Tops, thanks for your time. Enjoy your weekend, and people, take care. Up the Spurs.
Peace.
Peace.
All right.